Okay, good afternoon, everyone. We'd like to welcome you to the Office of Family Assistance Peer Technical Assistance webinar series in case management with our first webinar, Improving Participant Engagement, Motivation, and Participation. A couple of things we just like to remind you. In terms of the webinar, we just ask that you turn your speakers down. In addition to that, but do not mute those. We're going to turn this over to Lisa Washington-Thomas, who's the branch chief, and I'll let her provide an introduction, and we'll be starting shortly.
Great. Thank you, Stephen. Hi, I'm Lisa Washington-Thomas, as Stephen mentioned, and I am the branch chief for the Self-Sufficiency Branch in the Office of Family Assistance. We're here for this webinar because many Tribal TANF programs have expressed interest in receiving training for their staff on strengthening client engagement, motivating clients for success, screening and assessments, and improving employment outcomes. We're also very excited because as we were developing this webinar and promoting it, we received requests from our Health Profession Opportunity Grant colleagues and our Healthy Marriage and Responsible Fatherhood grantees. So we welcome all who are interested in this topic. The PeerTA team has developed a multi-part training series for Tribal TANF and HMRF and HPOG grantees who are seeking to achieve the following results: enhancing the case management skills of staff to improve employment outcomes, reduce the number of sanctions or other punitive penalties while improving engagement, developing applicable products and tools to improve case management performance and employment outcomes, and to generate continuous dialogue among the Tribal TANF, HPOG, and HMRF programs, resulting in a long-term peer support and sharing of promising practices that improve employment outcomes. This online training will be conducted by Jody Sue Kelly and is being offered via 4 webinars and will include practical assignments to develop tools and processes that can immediately be used to improve your program outcomes. We are extremely excited about this webinar series and look forward to working with all of you. More importantly, we are excited about the work you will accomplish to improve the lives of the families that you work with, and we consider we work with as well. So I will turn this over to Jody Sue Kelly. Jody Sue Kelly began her career in workforce development as a manager of a group home for delinquent youth in southwestern Pennsylvania. A few years later, she developed and expanded a local site for 7001 Limited at the time of the nation's largest employment program for low-income high school dropouts. After doubling the size of the program, she was promoted to the 70,001 national office in Washington, D.C. In 1984, she co-founded Signet Associates with Max Elsman. She is the author of the handbook, Job Development Made Much Easier, and Keeping the Client, a Strategy for Program and Job Retention. Her long experience and humorous touch make a very popular trainer and speaker with workforce development programs. So that's what they told me to say. I just want to say that we've worked with Jody Sue for a number of years as she has trained almost all of our programs in OFA, HPOG, HMRF, and TANF, and she has been a delight to work with, very knowledgeable and very relatable, and I think you are going to truly enjoy this training. So I will turn this over to Jody Sue, and thank you so much for helping us out once again.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. So today we'll be together to get some insights on how to improve engagement, motivation, participation. I mean, Lisa sort of told you about my background, but I've been working in the social service field, she didn't tell you this, for 40 years. So when I started out, I did pretty much the same job that many of you do now. I was on the workforce side as opposed to the TANF or welfare side. But I work with young people who needed to complete their education because they'd withdrawn from high school and really needed to find work. And the vast majority of my clients were from families receiving ADC and AFDC, which are programs that way predate TANF, which gives you just an idea of how old I am. Anyway, I operated as a program manager and a case manager, a job developer, a recruiter, a classroom training instructor. Basically, the program was so lightly staffed that everyone had to do everything. So 40 years later, I still travel around and provide training and technical assistance and have done for all of the programs that were mentioned. And I just have such a passion for helping the most disadvantaged among us to find success in work and in school. And I'm like really thankful because I had the great opportunity actually to travel to visit and train at some of your local programs. So I am excited that OFA has given us all this opportunity to work together to strengthen the case management skills of the people, in my mind, who do the real work, which is line staff. So Public Strategies and APIA both were sort of behind the scenes pulling all of this together. So thanks to everyone who made this happen, but especially to all of you who thought the session would have enough value to spend your afternoon with me. So today, we're going to begin this 4-session series on case management. I mean, my thought and experience in 40 years is that programs have a myriad of challenges serving economically disadvantaged participants. I mean, participant engagement, the ongoing commitment of our customers, in-program retention are really just but a few. These are really difficult issues to address because there are so many moving parts in the program, and each program is so different. So a set of solutions that works for one program won't necessarily be effective for every program, even of the same kind. So this workshop series is going to focus on case management strategies to help your clients to be more engaged in their own futures. In the first, we're going to learn basic motivation, engagement, and increasing participation. The second, we're going to look more in depth at motivational interviewing. The third, we're going to be looking at writing effective, efficient case notes that support the plan. And I'll argue there that I think case notes can even be used as a motivational tool. And then the last in the series will be about improving employment outcomes. So as Lisa mentioned, each session is going to conclude with giving you an application exercise, alias homework, that gives you the chance to practice the skill or the concept that's taught in the workshop. And then we're going to host some office hours following the webinar after you've done the homework to give you a chance to ask questions and have more of a dialogue and to be able to share strategies with your peers who are also taking this class. So I have a very simplified agenda today. And so the webinar is divided into 2 components. In the first half, we're going to look at how clients lose motivation as they move through the processes that we have created. I think it's really important to examine where and why clients lose motivation in the system, because we can't fix what we don't see. The second half, we're going to construct a more motivational process and look at techniques and strategies that will serve to build motivation and maintain it. At the end, I'll talk a little bit about the application assignment, alias homework, how you get it, what the assignment is, and how you'll send it in. So if you have questions as we move through, use the question and answer portion of the webinar to ask. I will either answer them online or I'll create a document that sends answers out to all. I need to warn you that I personally cannot see the questions and I cannot see the chat just because of the format that we're using. So I will leave it to Stephen or someone who's also in the presenter box to let me know if something appears that I need to see. So anyway, as we move on, it's very important to building motivation, engagement, and participation one very important thing is to look at all the component pieces of our processes and evaluate what is working and what is not. So we're going to be looking at the program from the client's perspective to identify points at which motivation wanes. I'm going to introduce you to two hypothetical clients, Shauna Potts and Anita Job. You'll be meeting them in a moment, but I want to walk through the program with Shauna and Anita to get a sense of what they think and what they feel as they encounter this work program. By looking at the system through their eyes, we can identify areas that need to be fixed to build their motivation. For all clients, including Shauna and Anita, the beginning of the journey is when they walk in the door and they show up in your waiting area. I mean, you could argue it's when they pick up the phone and call into your office. We're going to start in the waiting area. In the best case scenario, the journey is going to end with them getting a job that allows them to leave TANF behind. Some people in their journey, when time limits dictate that the journey be ended, but I know that we all hope that clients don't get to that point, because then really they have nothing. So say hello to Shauna. You'll see her throughout our journey together. Here's a bit about her. You can read through that. I'm not going to read all that to you. I assume you could read for yourself. But she's 27 years old. She has 2 kids. She's unemployed, and although she did graduate from high school, she actually functions below grade level. She wants to have a reliable income. She is not happy with her current situation. Financially, she's in debt, but she wants to do better for her children. She does have experience in other programs, but they didn't really work out the way she hoped, and so she's a little leery of this program as well. Now, Anita is our second client. She's 30 years old. She has 1 child. She has no work experience, but she's done a lot of under-the-table jobs to support herself and her daughter. So she left school after the 11th grade. She wants her daughter to have opportunities that she never had as a child and would like to get her high school diploma. She is involved in a child custody court case. And one thing that is going to be a influence on her motivation is that her family believes and is giving her the message that staying on TANF is her best choice, is the best choice that she can make for herself. So for the client, as I said, their journey begins when they walk into the program. Your client will decide to commit or just go through the motions based in part at what happens at that initial appointment. Clients are really, they're looking for solutions to their problems. I actually fundamentally believe people don't want to be in poverty. They don't want to stay there. But during this entire experience, they're going to be evaluating the value of the program to them. If it meets their needs, then they are likely to commit to the program. If they aren't convinced that the program has value, then they will do the minimum required to maintain their TANF, cash assistance, and some won't even do that. So oftentimes when programs are being set up, staff look at what the requirements are, what they have to accomplish to meet their goals, and then they design the entire system around the program's needs, like what is the most efficient way to do our work. We design program services around the agency's needs and not the client's needs, and that creates serious problems for the agency. So programs end up with high numbers on the not participating, I call inactive list. Clients fade away, and it's really difficult to re-engage them. So a far better approach for building motivation, commitment, and participation is to design the entire process around the client's needs. the client should always be front and center as we plan how to provide our service. Let me give you a quick example. So in my career, I've had many opportunities as a consultant to walk through the entire arc of the client's experience, like as if I was a client. I do everything the client would do, or at least I watch it being done. So I was once working in a program, and one of the requirements of their program was that each client, and it was TANF, but each client had to do a criminal background check and a child abuse clearance form. The program had the clients do that within the first few minutes of their very first appointment. It met the agency's needs for documentation so that they could check a box. But that did not meet the client's need. I mean, what would it do to a client's motivation to immediately be confronted with a criminal background check and child abuse clearance form before they even understand what the program is about? So if I were planning a positive client journey, I would recommend that while I know I have to get the criminal background check and the child abuse clearance form completed, and it's got to go into the file, I'm not going to turn off my clients by doing that first thing, because I will alienate more clients than I will win over with such an approach. So when we begin to look at the system from the client's perspective, what we're looking for is motivational potholes. We want to look at the client's experience in slow motion, step by step, to figure out what kind of things do we need to change. And we're going to discover potholes all along the way that need to be filled. This to me is a little bit like that TV show, if you've ever watched it, Undercover Boss. I love it because the boss goes in anonymously and works with the employees of his or her organization to see what's working and what is not working about the decisions that are made at headquarters, and none of the employees know that this is the CEO. It is, for him or her, it's seeing it from a different perspective, and that allows the undercover boss to see the flaws and inefficiencies and that are making it more difficult for employees and customers. So they come back and then they're able to recommend solutions. So we want to do that same thing, is view the system from a new perspective, and that perspective is the client's. So what are the steps that clients have to go through? Now, what you see on your screen, that is a partial list. It is in no way intended to be complete, but it will give you examples of the kind of services that we offer to see what the client travels through. So maybe they phone in, they wait in the office, they go to orientation, they go to intake and assessment or initial assessment, then they meet with a case manager, we identify their barriers, we assign them to some activities, we get monthly submission of timesheets. But what I'm saying is anytime a client comes in contact with your program, you have an opportunity to influence their motivation to the positive or to the negative. So as part of the application assignment, homework, following this webinar, I will be asking you to go through your program and to list all of the steps that clients take in their journey in your office. Then you can begin to analyze, as we will hear, what is working and what is not. So walk a mile in my shoes. So to make powerful changes, you're going to want to focus on the perspective of your participants, because when you become them and walk a mile in their shoes, Shauna and Anita, you're going to have a much better chance of developing true empathy for what they're going through and what works and what doesn't. So at this point, we're going to begin the journey with Shauna and Anita, but look on this slide. Look how happy they look. They're so excited because I think that that's how they probably are in their lives. So they walk into our office, and the first step is waiting at the initial appointment. So they're sitting in the waiting area. They're waiting for their case manager to come and get them. They aren't sitting there by the way, like a blank slate. They have thoughts and emotions about being at that office. Oftentimes, they don't really understand why they're there. They don't understand who they will be seeing. They don't understand what the process will be about. So they may be thinking, as Shauna is, wow, who will I get? How much longer do I have to wait? Or maybe they're thinking like Anita is, what if I say something wrong? I'm so nervous. So this is the first point to me that we could be motivating them. Could, as an example, could they get a packet of outcomes that they can expect, that they could be reading through while they're sitting in that waiting area, like a list of employers who have worked with your program in the past, so that they can start envisioning and visualizing like, oh, these are some places I could work. Could they get flyers about vocational training programs they could consider? A list of GED and academic options, maybe a list of community service sites they could work at. Can you make that waiting time pleasant and hopeful rather than them sitting nervously watching the clock? I want them to sit there and be dreaming, not fretting. Now, poor Shauna, she doesn't really get an orientation to the overall program. The case manager immediately brought her into his or her office and started doing the initial assessment. Shauna doesn't understand what the program is about, what is required, but at this point, she doesn't even have enough information. She's not even in the point yet that she can even figure out what questions she has, because she's sort of, traveling in the dark. She doesn't understand the program, the outcomes she can hope for, so she cannot help to make choices about her future or her plan, so she is very likely, and I see this all the time, to go along to get along, but she's going to have no commitment to the choices that are made for her. Anita has a little different experience. She actually got directed to an orientation session. And when I say orientation, that can be group or that can be one-on-one. But it was a highly technical description of the program. Let's look at what she experienced in the next couple slides. But what I think that you're going to see, and you'll agree, it's just a basic rehash of what's in the law with no attempt made to translate it into language that she understands. Remember, when we met Anita, she left high school in the 11th grade, and Shauna, you'll remember, reads below grade level. So the next slides are actual slides that were used in an orientation in a TANF program somewhere. I have changed the names to protect the guilty. But I want you to be thinking about the reaction your clients would have to the next two slides I show. So let's take a look. Slide 1. What are you required to do to receive temporary cash assistance? Again, this is an actual slide, except for the little picture I just added of the people looking like they're sleeping and bored out of their minds. You can imagine PowerPoint karaoke. That's what I call it when somebody just reads the slides to you. Anyone receiving TANF is required to follow all rules and regulations of the program so that you can qualify for the maximum benefit amount. Okay, participate 40 hours per week of approved work activities to gain, maintain employment and self-sufficiency. Like, I cannot imagine that after just sitting through this single slide that we're going to be thinking that or using the terms or visually seeing clients being excited, being motivated, being enthusiastic. This is just, for them, a price that they have to pay. Let's look at slide number 2. Again, actual slide. Except I added this reading box, so this reading box does not appear on the original, but I want you to notice the reading level. I ran it through a readability scale, and it's far over the client's reading level. So if you look at gunning fog, that's sort of the industry standard. 16.1, I just recognize that's actually higher than a senior in college. Does this cause motivation problems? Asking people to commit to something they don't understand, using language that is way over their head. Let's just look at the first bullet. Approved work activities have been determined by the state and federal regulations, and all activity must be verified by approved documentation. I think if we could bore Anita into being excited, then we would have hit a home run here, because this is pretty boring. So then, what's the next step in their journey? Impersonal paperwork, forms, and documents. And actually, we are really going to look at this in the next session on doing more motivational interviewing. But for Shauna, on our left, she didn't get an orientation, so her first step was doing impersonal paperwork, forms, signing documents. While Anita got an orientation, it wasn't a helpful experience, so she moves into the initial assessment meeting already feeling overwhelmed and confused. Many of our forms and data collection are oriented in such a way that we're asking things like, do you have a valid driver's license? Do you have a criminal conviction? Did you graduate from high school? And things like that, that are basically yes and no questions or very short answer. How many children do you have? 3. But they don't invite discussion and sharing. Wouldn't it be more motivational, a more motivational approach to begin the initial meeting without the forms and documents and instead begin with open-ended type questions? And maybe this isn't how I express this question, but it's the intent. Tell me your story. I want to know what's going on with them. I want to hear some of those things I told you in the introduction about Shauna and Anita, because those things engage the recipient and give them a chance to explain what is happening in their lives so that then they can help participate in the whole planning process. But what also happens is, and I want to spend a moment focusing on language that we use that focuses on weakness. So let's look a little deeper at the forms themselves and what we may ask or say to people that is a total turnoff. So one of the words, and it's the word I think I cringe the most when I hear in workforce, in TANF, in any of these programs, is the word barrier. What is a barrier? This is just basically right out of the dictionary. I wish I could say I take credit for this, but I don't. I dragged it from the dictionary. It's a fence. It's a fence. It's an obstacle that prevents movement or access. It's a circumstance or an obstacle. It stops people. Think of a barrier on a highway. What does that barrier across the highway say? It says stop, don't go this way. It's a negative word. It is a negative word that I think has psychological impact. Like imagine a stranger walking up to you and starting a conversation with you. The stranger starts the conversation with, you know what your problem is? My guess is that this is not likely someone who you're going to develop a fondness for, because you don't start conversations that way. So what happens? Well, that's the saddest song I've ever heard. I can't even believe it was ever #1, but it was. But I think that we reinforce low self-esteem and raise the psychological price to people and turn off participants when we use this kind of language, because it makes people feel bad. It provides excuses to people. It makes people feel like they're being judged. I was attending a job search workshop as a client once, so I was fully participating just like I was a TANF recipient, because I wanted to see, I was helping that program figure out what the program could do to increase participation and engagement. So during one of the breaks, I was talking to several of the women who were also in the same class I was in, and I asked them, hey, so how long have you been in the program? Just trying to have some like little chit-chat. And one of them told me, I've been coming here for a really long time. I've been here almost 6 months. And then to like give me inside information, she says, you know, I've been here a long time, but I have multiple barriers to employment. Well, there is no way she made up that term. She did not wake up in the middle of the night out of a deep sleep and think, wow, I have multiple barriers to employment. She has heard that concept. Someone's used it with her, and now she's wearing it around her shoulders, and it's becoming an excuse for why she cannot make progress. I have to tell you, I was totally saddened by the comment, because I look at Shauna. How are they impacted by this? I have so many barriers. I won't make it. What's the use? If those are her thought bubbles, then we've just sort of, for her, created a deeper hole that we have to help dig her back out of to get her up on even ground so that we can build motivation. So words I wish we could banish from using with our clients. And if you hear rain in the background, that's me. So we should banish these words because they are not useful in building self-esteem, confidence, or the motivation of clients. I think it hobbles them because they're degrading, demoralizing, they're humiliating. And this isn't how we want our customers to feel. So read through your literature and listen to conversations to make sure that these words are eliminated from anything that we show or say to clients. So even if I cannot eliminate them because they're on a state form or an agency form, I can't eliminate them right away. What I can do is not say them directly to my customers, because that leads us to this next slide, which is this whole concept of why do our clients have low self-esteem and how can we build it? I frequently hear staff say that. Well, to me, words have meaning. Be careful what you say. When people feel judged, it creates resistance, and then we have to spend a lot of time overcoming that resistance. So sort of my adage is label jars, not people. So now we're going to move to sort of jump forward to the monthly case management check-in, so where they have to come in and bring in a timesheet. So the client might be dropping off these timesheets, or maybe they're coming in to update their plan. But what I want us to look at is oftentimes, again, we set up the meeting, so we're talking about our paperwork before the client's needs. So depending on how that meeting is organized and the sequence in which we cover things, it can feel very superficial and perfunctory to the client. And here is an example. So Anita comes in, and this is the conversation. What I'm representing here is that this conversation is primarily about timesheets and our requirements and our needs. So I need to get your timesheets from you. Okay, it looks like you've met your hours last week. That's great. Anything else going on? Let's quickly review your plan. I'll see you next month. It's less about Anita's goals, which you'll remember when I introduced her, which was building a better future for her child. She also wants to work on her education. So in this case, her reaction's going to be whatever. So this is a non-motivational case management interaction, and to me, a missed opportunity to connect with Anita and to motivate her. I think it's one or Yeah, I think we only have like one other thing I want us to look at on areas that I think that we create potholes, and that is to review all communication that customers get, review it for harsh tone or high reading levels. Oftentimes we provide information to clients that I said before, it's just too high in the reading level, so they don't even understand it. But also, it can be very harsh in tone, and we want to step back and say, what does that do to motivation? So these are samples of power tools that are the opposite of motivation and engagement. This is about compliance and doing what you're told. So we coerce, we threaten, we sanction, we strong-arm, we browbeat, we intimidate, we pressure them, we demand. My point is compliance is not motivation. I actually, and maybe some of you would argue this, but I would rather have a motivated client who struggles with compliance than a compliant client who has no motivation. The compliant client will comply until their time runs out, and then she has nothing. I think sometimes we default to power tools when someone is not complying because it is easier than building motivation. But in the end, it's a whole lot less effective. So here's an actual example. This is real. All I did was copy it and paste it. This is an actual example of a sanction letter sent to a client. Don't try to read it. Just look at how overwhelming it is. And I didn't actually even highlight the red. The red is highlighted in the actual letter. Trust me, all I did was copy and paste it because I'm lazy. But I think the first sentence says it all. You must discuss with me the reason for this failure. Like, it creates a thought and a negative emotion in the client that has impact, and likely it is not the impact that we want to have. So those are just a few. I mean, I only have so much time in a webinar, but those are just some of the things that leap out at me as, you know, I move through a program to see where can we impact motivation. I see all kind of opportunities because every single time we meet with or touch a client, it is an opportunity for motivation. So in essence, like my perspective is our clients have hard lives, and maybe they've made some bad decisions. Maybe they had hard childhoods and circumstances, but our job is to lift them up, is to give them hope, and to help them move beyond those circumstances. We want them to strive for something better for them and for their children. So more true in TANF, probably than the other workforce programs that I work with, we must work to build motivation by creating processes that are like generated and conceived looking at it from this client's perspective. So every interaction should be building motivation. So let's look at the flip side. I've already given suggestions on what we could change because, again, to me, every interaction, every point can be this opportunity to build motivation. So let's look at some motivational strategies. Everybody dance. So what I want, and I know we all want, at every level, everybody on this call, we want to inspire, we want to encourage, we want to excite, we want to support, we want to motivate, we want to energize our clients. We want them to see the services that you offer as a great opportunity for success. I want them to feel excited when they come into the office and meet with their case manager. I want them to have a hope for a better future. And I know, again, that that's what everybody on this phone call wants too. So let's start at the beginning. In your experience, which of these three most accurately depict the motivation of the person applying for aid? When a client walks through the door, what is their initial motivation? Why did they ever apply in the first place? I don't think on the first one that anyone is ever standing outside your office talking among themselves saying, wow, really hope I get my individual responsibility plan today. You know, that's actually what my life has been missing. So I don't think that's the motivator. Self-sufficiency, the middle one, I don't think that is either, because that is our jargon. That is our terminology. I don't think that people who are living in poverty, I don't think that people who are economically disadvantaged sit around the kitchen table talking about self-sufficiency. That's something that we talk about. Let's look at the last one. They applied to TANF in the first place because their motivation was money. So if their motivation is money, then if that's the motivator, then money, a steady income, more financial security is what we should sell. TANF pays so little, even at a minimum wage job, will provide them more when you include all the extras that they will receive. And I'll talk about that with you here in a moment. But I think that you have to pick a selling proposition that motivates. And what motivates is talking about things like financial security, whatever term you want, financial security, improving your income, having more money for you and your children, to be able to do what you want, because then I think that what we've done is we put the right bait on the hook so that we're more likely to get their attention, because now I want to hear what kind of things that you might be able to do. So messaging for that first meeting. Notice that when you first see a client, you're going to want to begin laying the groundwork for helping them to see that our focus is on building a more secure financial future. We want to work with them to have more. So that is selling hope. That meets the need that brought them in the first place. So now we're thinking like they think. So my script, you know, if that doesn't sound like you change the words. But, okay, so your application to give you temporary, notice, emphasis on the word temporary, help in the form of cash and food stamps was approved. This is going to buy you some time, or buy us some time, as we work together to figure out how to provide you with a more secure financial solution for you and your children. So I'm going to help you to create a plan to improve your income. So ultimately, we get you to the point that you don't need cash and food stamps anymore, but you've got to start that theme at the very beginning. You can't like just do one workshop on financial planning or, you know, on just like financial education and think they're going to get this. This has to be woven all the way through the program. So now it's time for orientation. And with orientation, the pressure's now on. So we have big applause. Orienting the client, to me, is the program's very first best step. Nobody ever buys anything that they don't understand, that they don't get. And that orientation should be participatory and fun. It should translate very difficult concepts into plain English. It also has to come some very common misperceptions and misconceptions, rumors about TANF. the orientation, let's see, what do they look like when they walk in the door? These are three things that I've seen, and even in talking to clients and hearing them talk, that they think about TANF and they're not true. One, they think there's no such thing as time limits, and I do know that in some tribal TANF there is no time limit. Definitely if they're in the state TANF side but still attending your program, there are time limits, but they have no sense of urgency about this. Some believe, like Anita in the middle, that you don't really have to do anything, that there's really, they don't get that there's really a requirement about hours and participation. And back to Shauna on the far right, don't really believe that people lose their benefits. So they have no fear of the sanctions, nor time limits, because they don't really believe that that is true, because everybody knows somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who's been on TANF far longer than what we've said, 5-year limit. So orientation has to help them see it differently. So going over an actual orientation, this might be my opening slide. No, I think I'm sorry. I think I accidentally skipped. No, I didn't. I didn't skip a slide. Sorry. This might be my opening screen as people come into orientation. But if you do it one-on-one, then it could be the first page in a binder that will walk everyone through step by step. So whether we do it in group or one-on-one, everyone needs some basic information, and this really can't be rushed, because if we skim past stuff, we miss opportunities. So this, again, is, go back to what I just said, I've got to put the right bait on the hook and look, and Anita's reaction. More money is exactly what I need, because I can't live on the little bit that, that TANF is giving me. Okay, so if you guys, any of you have ever played the game Price is Right, this is what I want to play with customers. I want clients to either remember or guess what prices were back in 1987 or another year, and I'll talk about that here in a second, and what the prices are today for some very common items and things. Trust me. Prices have doubled, tripled, and in some cases quadrupled in that period of time. I let them guess on the chart. I sort of can make a game out of it. If I have a group, I actually bring in empty carton of eggs, gallon of milk, and I have the sign so that I can lift them up and they can check, you know, sort of like Vanna does. But trust me, whatever it was in 87, there's going to be an increase by 2018. What I need is the customers to see what has happened to prices, that prices have gone up, and as we're going to look at, cash benefits have not. The insight into how they're getting financially squeezed has to be theirs. So I want to play this in orientation, again, group or one-on-one. I can do this sitting across a desk with somebody, because I need them to see for themselves that TANF is a terrible financial plan. I have charts, and I'm certainly willing to share those, but I have charts that show state cash assistance levels going back to 1981. So every state, what would a one-parent, two-children household get in 1981, in 1980, I think 86, 88, 90, 91, and now it's like you can get the numbers for every year. These charts show that gross amount that they would get, the maximum on their cash assistance. I can't do all 50 states on this webinar. Well, it would be boring. But let me give you some examples of what has happened to TANF in the past 37 years. Arkansas. I don't know if anybody's online from Arkansas, but in 1988, a family of 3 in Arkansas would have gotten $204 in their cash assistance. Today, a family of 3 would get $204. It has gone up 0 in 37 years. Arizona's gone down $69 in the past 21 years. In 1996, a family of 3 would have gotten $347. I'm sorry. Yeah, $347. I'm right. And right now they'd get $278. California has gone down $9 in the past 8 years. In 2005, it was $723 for a family of 3. Today, it's $714, so that's a reduction of $9. Idaho has increased in the past 37 years. It's increased $4 in 37 years. In 1987, it was $305. Today, it is $309. So you can see that people are not getting wealthy, and they're not doing better by being on TANF. So, in Minnesota, actually it's gone up 0 in 37. It's same as 1988, $532. So I don't have access to tribal TANF numbers, but I do assume that the trends follow the same kinds of trends that the states would. Yours might be a few dollars more, so it might not be an exact parallel, but it's close. That information is likely available locally, but if not, I would use the state rates, because I think that it's important for people on their own to grasp the idea that I don't want to live. I don't want to live like this, because when you look at where do you think that the TANF will be in 2023, 5 years from now, well, when you see that there's been no increase in all of this time, the chance that in 5 years it's still going to be the same, prices will go up, because right now they're even talking about inflation, but TANF has not. So what are some of the financial advantages of working that we're going to need to cover in the orientation? I jammed all this up on one slide, but you could do separate slides on it. But I need to talk about these things. There needs to be, you've got to open their eyes. So part of orientation needs to be able to show them these financial advantages of working. I've included several points that you'll want to make, and I've done this with clients before. It was in a program, and I was training others, staff, how to do orientation. So they were watching me, and I was actually working with their clients. I use a worksheet where on one side they indicate how much are they getting in their TANF check, how much they get in food stamps, any other cash coming into the house. They do a tally and see what is going to be their monthly total. Then we do it based on the fact that they're working at a job and what is going to be the wage rate. They'll still get food stamps because they won't lose them all, because they're likely to not be making enough. But if you add together all the wages and all the other benefits, they actually are better off. But they need to see that and begin to dream about how life could be. So earned income tax credit, that's a big chunk of change. Those are the current, what's happening this year. Child tax credit used to be $1,000 with the new tax reform or cuts, whatever you call it, that just went through. It's now $2,000. It's doubled. There are, and this is state by state, so I can't talk about this for everybody who's on the line, but in some states there's income disregard. So first percentage of the money that you make or the first few months, it doesn't even count. They'll still qualify for help with food stamps. So let's get past that idea that clients have, oh, you lose all my food stamps. No, you won't. They'll go down, but you'll more than make up for it in the income. Medicaid continues. And then sometimes I even talk about Social Security and basically the survivor benefits, because that's like a little life insurance policy for your children. If you put in enough quarters and then something would happen to you, your children will get a monthly payment until they turn 18 years old. I believe we cannot skip talking about finances, because I think that's the central reason that clients came in the first place. They don't have financial literacy or experience to understand all the benefits of working. I think sometimes we don't want to talk about the financial aspect of TANF with our clients because we believe they would be worse off. And so some of the things that I have heard around the country as well, if they went to work, they'd lose their Section 8 housing. That's not true. They would not lose it. They might have to pay up to 30% of their earnings, not all these other benefits like earned income tax credit, child credit, but up to 30% of their wages, and they get credit for their utilities. I mean, there's formulas for that, but it's not true that they just totally lose Section 8. They would lose all their food stamps. We already talked about that. That's not true. They would pay higher child care. That is true. But the amount of money that they would pay with the that they would pay versus the tax credits, it's going to bring it more into balance. And bottom line, staying on TANF is a trap that I don't want to see them fall into. Wages go up. Tax credits have gone up. But just the numbers that I read you, TANF hasn't gone up. And even in states where it did, it hasn't gone up substantially. So and I want, in this case, I want Anita to be armed so that she can go tell her family. Remember, her family doesn't want her to get off TANF. They think she's better off. We need to arm her with the information so that she can have this argument or discussion, not like argument, but a discussion with her family. And so when I was in Philly, and I just told you where, well, not the Philly you're thinking about, but I was running their orientation. It was funny because there were 4 young women. They'd all been sanctioned. And so they were coming in after the sanction to go through orientation again. And the staff had warned me they would be angry and they were going to be difficult to deal with, which is why they wanted me to do it, so that they could watch what I would do with these very difficult, angry clients. Anyway, we went through that worksheet that I told you where we're adding earned income tax credit, the child care credit. We're looking at like what they might lose in food stamps, but what they'd gain in wages. Anyway, there was thousands and thousands of dollars difference, and the reaction of the client was, which I've made Anita have that reaction, is, why didn't anybody ever tell me this before? So I know that it makes a difference. So I'm going over an actual orientation agenda, where I'm giving you this actual orientation agenda and script. But that would take more time than I have today to go over the entire thing. I do half-day workshops on how to just organize that orientation meeting. But I, at minimum, wanted to provide you an agenda that is in sequence. Notice that on this agenda, if you read through it quickly, we're talking about sanctions and rights and responsibilities toward the end. Why? Because it's boring. And so I don't want to talk about that up front. Before we, I think before, we begin setting up plans, we have to overcome their misconceptions and talk about how this can help them to have a better future. So the first few points, setting the groundwork, basically, I'm doing this very quickly, but I just want to give them some basics about welfare. Welfare has changed. I mean, now it hasn't changed since 1996, but welfare used to just be that you got to check food stamps and Medicaid, medical. But now, the way the program is designed, we can do much more. We can help them go to school, help them get work experience, help them with transportation. We do a lot more in terms of helping them get a job. So welfare has changed so that we can provide you all of this, this assistance to help you use your time wisely. And build the fundamentals that you need to build so that you can have this better future for you and your kids. But in exchange for that help, you have to be investing in your own future. You have to spend so many hours per week preparing to leave TANF, because if you don't do that, your part, then so you aren't putting in the work in order to build this foundation, then sadly some of your cash is going to go away. So what we want to do is work together to secure your future. And then I want to give them this sense of urgency in terms of time limits. Again, that's contingent upon your tribe, because some tribes don't have time limits, I recognize. But, right now, I will say, if you watch the news, Congress is looking at making some changes And so I would suggest to customers today, use it now to get yourself prepared, because any change likely to come from our current Congress, I think, would be likely to make the requirements harder. So so get on the stick now. And then notice the entire middle section, how it's to your advantage to participate, how cash assistance is stagnant, that's my price is right, how you're better off, that's a comparison activity. We're going to be looking at goal setting here in a second, and then I'm going to show you all the services that you can get and how they can help. I want to show them all the positive stuff before I start talking about what happens if you don't participate. So, if I said earlier that you cannot call things barriers, then what can we change our language to? Well, how about everyone has challenges in their life and we have to plan around them? Actually, think about us. We all have to cope with and plan around things. So what I want to do with the customers is talk about what are some of the challenges that you have so that we can plan together how to handle those. Notice the only difference in what I said is I didn't use the word barrier because barrier is negative. I think challenge is something that can be overcome if we looked up the definition in a dictionary. Like, do any of us have perfect lives? Any of you have lives that are perfect? No, we all have challenges. Heck, I got an 88-year-old Alzheimer's mother-in-law living with me. I have a brother just had a double lung transplant. I have a niece who right now, just yesterday, and I'm not really sure the outcome, they're looking at whether or not she has cancer in her fallopian tube. I got stuff, but I'm still here. I'm still on this phone doing the webinar because those are challenges. They're things I have to cope with. They're things I have to plan around, but they're not barriers to my success. So we're just, what we want to do with customers is just help them figure out a workaround, and that's what we do in our own lives, and that's what we do with clients. So I just want to reposition the negative into hopeful and positive, because I think that helps me to have a more motivated client. So if I drill that down just a little bit for you, and notice Shauna, her reaction is much better. You have some challenge, you have some situations in your life, and let's talk about those, because all of us, we have challenges that we're going to need to plan around. And so instead of saying lack of transportation, are we going to need, like, let's talk a little bit about transportation. Are we going to need to work on a plan for that, or is that something that you're going to be able to take care of? Instead of lacks work experience, which sounds so negative, with some of my customers and with some of the clients that I work with, that in order to get them where they want to go, they need to broaden their work experience. Sometimes people come in and they don't have a lot of work experience. And so let me ask you, is that something that we need to work on and get them talking? Instead of saying ex-offender or felon or something negative of that label, just that, we have some employers who are not concerned about criminal records. Is that something that we need to plan around for you? So I think that it helps the client to walk out of the door feeling hopeful and accepted rather than depressed and embarrassed. The language here is proactive. It's not a monkey on their back. And I think from Shauna's perspective, it's more likely that her thought is, well, that makes sense, and they're really going to help me because they understand who I am and what is going on, and I don't feel judged. So it's hard. This is hard to do. I recognize it, but it is one of the most critical parts of motivation. It's having goals. It's having dreams. To get people out of their comfort zone, you have to get them to imagine a different kind of future. Because when I imagine a different kind of future, and that future is better, it makes me more uncomfortable where I'm at right now. Now I don't like where I'm at. I want to work toward that better future. Like one example might be exercise for you guys. You decide that you're going to start a walking program or you're going to go to the gym. When you're making that decision, you visually have a picture of yourself in the future. I don't know what it is, what that picture is that you have. Maybe it's fitting into the clothes in your closet. Maybe it's being able to go on to a long hike. Maybe it's getting compliments from your family and friends. Or maybe it's increasing your exercise so your blood pressure goes down so your doctor will notice. I don't know what it is, but it's that image in your mind. It's that dream that you have that helps you be motivated. You want the outcome, not the process of exercising. Some of you have been in workshops with me or had me on site, have probably heard me talk about this before, so I'll cut down the story significantly, I promise, although it does have many parts. But years ago, I joined Jenny Craig. It's a weight loss program. I did not join the program because I wanted to eat their pre-frozen meals. I didn't join the program because I wanted to go to their weekly meetings. I didn't join the program because I wanted to get to spend extra time and money on food. I joined because I was getting ready to go to a high school reunion, and I had a dream that I could lose weight before the reunion and look exactly like I did in high school. Okay, totally unrealistic, but whatever. But I could see in my head my high school classmates coming up to me and telling me, oh, you haven't changed since high school. So it was that vision, that dream that kept me going to Jenny Craig. You want your customers to dream. So what's a process for doing that? I would ask my clients, and encourage you to, in orientation or in that first meeting, to write down how they want their lives to be. Let's say that they had $10,000 more next year than they have this year. What would that mean? Get them to dream about how much better it could be. You will want to give them a way to record it, but you'll also want to keep a copy so that you can have conversations with them. One program I was working with in Erie, Pennsylvania, actually they laminated these, and they put refrigerator magnet stickies on the back so people could hang it on their refrigerator, because they'd say there are days you're not going to want to do this, but let's go back. You're not doing it for me. You're doing this because these are the things that you want to achieve. Dreaming of a better future helps you be less satisfied with where you're at now. So it moves people from comfort levels. Each time I went to Jenny, that's exactly what my customer did. She asked me what I was going to wear to the reunion, who I might see. We talked about who was coming to the reunion. Every week we literally talked about my goals, not Jenny's. Because I could care less about Jenny's goals, their sales, their paperwork, their filing process. All I cared about was my reunion. So let's look at some goals that are not very powerful, and those are program goals. This happens all the time, by the way, because we'll say to a client, what are your goals when they're filling out paper? And they'll go, get a job, get a GED. It's like they just regurgitate for us what they think we want to hear. But these aren't powerful, so don't confuse program goals with life goals. Getting a GED is not the goal. What is the goal is the why do you want to get your GED? What the why behind the goal? So I had a young customer, Stan. He wanted to get his GED because he wanted to give his grandmother the opportunity to watch him walk across the stage and collect his diploma. His grandmother had raised him, and he saw it as, I want to be able to give her that gift. Well, he just told me what his motivator was. It's pleasing grandma, and I'm going to use it. The goal isn't getting a certificate. It's why. Why do you want to get a certificate? And that could be for a better job, a higher paying job. People don't want to get a certificate to hang on their wall. There's a reason. It's not even getting a job. It's the why. What are the life goals that these activities help them to achieve? So these are just steps that you take. These aren't ultimate goals. These are what we want them to do. But these things are not as powerful to our customers. These are easy to quit. Look at what is much more powerful. Look at Shauna, Anita. I'm sorry, that's Shauna. Shauna there, she's dreaming. She's in a dream state, and that's exactly where I want them. These are more powerful because notice they're personal. They relate directly to the client. This is what we're working for. So these are the goals we want them to vocalize. We want them to write down that she wants to own a car, she wants to pay off fines, she wants to buy her son some things or her daughter. Those are the goals that are powerful. So how can I use those goals? As a case manager, I can use them to begin writing a plan. They're useful really in every component of the program. The plan, all plans should be tied to those goals. I can use them at every meeting. I can use them to renew slipping motivation. Jenny Craig, I didn't show up one Saturday morning. I was done. I was sick of it. I was quitting. Jenny called me within a half hour, my counselor, and I told her, it's like, thanks a lot for everything you've done, but I don't really think I'm coming back. And she gasped. And I'm like, what? And she goes, oh my gosh, did they cancel your high school reunion? Took me right back to why I was doing it. And then she asked me how I'd feel at the reunion when I'd come so far and then I'd stopped. And I said I probably wouldn't feel too good. She asked me what my strategy would be. What was I going to do? And I asked her, it's like, well, will you take me back? Because she kept me so focused on why I was doing this. And I don't want to give that up. So sometimes your goals seem far away. Sometimes goals seem hard to reach. Sometimes they get out of focus. But if you want motivated clients, you as a case manager have to keep their goals in plain sight. So we have got to get them to articulate those goals. So 3 pieces of information that you need for motivation. And this should be somewhere in the file because I'm going to need it when people start slipping. What service interested them the most? So what was the best pathway that they saw to reaching their goals? Again, I'm not putting all my eggs in that basket. What are their life goals? Where do they want to be? What do they want out of life? How do they want it to be different than it is now? And what dissatisfies them about their life right now? What do they hate about their life right now? And maybe it's because they're living with their parents and they want to get a place on their own. You know what? That's a goal. All of those things can be turned into goal statements. So it isn't enough on a form to just ask what are your goals where they say get a job, get my GED, because again, all they're doing is saying what we want to hear. I need them to dream further and think more deeply. And although I know it's initially, it might feel like it's a little difficult to implement. And there are agencies that tell me, oh, we have a workshop on goal setting. That is great. And I'm glad. And, maybe they do storyboarding and they cut out magazines, pictures of where they wish their life would be. And that is all great. And I applaud it. I strongly encourage it. But what I'm saying is the case managers, it's not enough to do that for an hour, hour and a half in a workshop and then not use it as a case manager all through the customer's journey to help them stay focused on why it is that they're doing this. So I put together to show you an example, inclusion of the dream. It's critical during ongoing case management to continue their motivation. So notice my opening when I first meet Shauna again is, hey, you're taking some really important steps toward making a better life for your children. Notice the affirmations, the positive strokes, and notice how Shauna feels about this meeting. It feels great. I'm so proud of myself. And we tied it back to her goal of making a better life for her children. So this is why I'm saying I want coming in, when they have to come in and talk to you all, talk to their case manager, I want them to be looking forward to it because they know that they get positive feedback and positive affirmations. And so then I continue, you're in school, you're making really good progress, you only have 4 weeks left. I want to talk about the next steps any steps that you've taken since our last conversation, talk about what's next, and notice these are all open-ended questions, which again we'll get into in more detail in the next one, because yes/no questions aren't going to cut it. So we looked at the script for a bad meeting earlier, case management meeting. It just talked about the timesheets. Notice this one is more engaging because it begins with Anita. Hi, Anita. Hey, I know how hard you're working to increase your income so you'll have more for you and your daughter. She must be, again, I guess I was on the same rut, but she must be proud of you and all the effort that you're making. And I think Anita's thinking like, wow, the case manager remembers my goals. I'm not like just a widget being processed through a factory. Like, this is personal. And yeah, my daughter sees that, all that I'm doing. Now that I'm bringing home homework every night and she has homework from school, like, she thinks it's funny that I'm older and I have to do homework. Oh, I just love her so much. That's all positive. But notice in my third paragraph, I actually made her not perfect. It appears that you're short, that you're a few hours short. So my clients aren't all going to immediately comply. So notice in my dialogue, I ask her, what ideas do you have? I notice that I want her to solve her own problems because that gives her ownership. She's far more invested in her own ideas than she will ever be in my solutions. Empowerment is key, so get her involved. What ideas do you have? So sort of in conclusion, you want to go step by step in slow motion and look at what are the processes and the practices that could be adjusted in your program so that we're using more motivational techniques throughout the entire arc of the. We need to change anything that we do that undermines our clients' motivation. I believe that we're all committed to helping our clients find their own success. We want happy, motivated clients who we coach and we support, and we can get there by making changes in the program that increase motivation, and it's on us to make that happen. So the last thing I want to share with you is that there is going to be some homework. It's going to be sent out via email after this session, and you'll also get a PDF of this presentation. I wrote an instruction sheet that talks about step-by-step how to complete the assignment, as well as on the bottom of it are instructions on where to send it. Now, I'm basically going to be asking you to go through your own process and do what I did in this session. Identify all of the steps that people move through. You're going to identify the thoughts that your clients have during that step. Maybe you've actually even heard them say things. Maybe you've watched their faces and you can see this isn't the exciting part for them. And then you have to decide if that's a positive or a negative emotion from the client's perspective. You'll outline the process, identify the thoughts, and then decide if that's a motivational experience or if there are opportunities to add motivation. Then there's a second worksheet. And on that one, I wrote up like, I can't even remember, a 20-item quiz. It's just a short assessment on best practices for case managers for motivation that go hand in hand with the things we talked about in this webinar. So I just want you to assess your strengths and areas of opportunity for building motivation. What I would encourage is if you have multiple people, staff from the same agency who are also in this workshop, everybody could do like the worksheet number 2 by themselves and then come together and see where you agree and disagree on how you're faring. And then the third worksheet, which is a simple one, but just identify some changes that you would like to make in the next 3 months. If you have multiple staff from the same agency, then I will ask you to submit one homework assignment that you all have worked on together as a group. Once everybody does their worksheet 1, you can compare and contrast. You could come together for an hour, as a staff and complete that together. The step 2 you can do separately and then just accumulate the results. And step 3 is identifying what changes. I think everybody's got to be on board for that. And so you will then submit based, again, on the instructions that you get. We will have office hours. Those will also be coming out, the link for how you sign up. That will also be coming out in the email that will follow this this webinar. So I'm going to end and say thanks and have a great rest of the afternoon. But I do want to, first of all, ask Stephen, because I don't have access to the Q&A, whether or not there were any questions that I need to answer. So can I turn it back over to Stephen?
Absolutely, Jody. And actually, there was one comment that did come in through the chat that may be a question. And someone mentioned in terms of reaching out, there's sometimes legal language that they may require in their documents to the client. And how can they balance that legal language and make sure that the letter is still motivating?
Actually, there's something called behavioral economics. And so if I have to send something, and the sanction letter that I showed you, that is a state mandated sanction letter. The site itself, the local site, hates it. But they don't have any control unless the state would let them change it. And that's a process, I guess, they're not willing to tackle. So then with behavioral economics, what I would do is create a flyer, because you're not prevented from doing this, that is a picture that's more like visual and that still sends the message, like maybe it's a calendar page with a date circle that says, call me by this day, so that your cash assistance will not be impacted, or, call me by this day, so that we can get you back on track, so your cash assistance is not impacted. But it's to take and make a visual flyer that in essence says it's the message of what that sanction letter said, but it's done in a more engaging, understandable way. And so then I'll put the state required form in the envelope, but then mine that also shows is a much more readable and understandable to my client. And me, if I'm their case manager, I would probably, on the one that I send, write a handwritten note, looking forward to talking to you, I miss you, or something, or like, let's talk and get back on track. You cannot underestimate the value of the personalized process. So that's what I would recommend.
All right, Jody, thank you very much for that. And with that in mind, we'll go ahead, just a few announcements before we conclude the webinar. First of all, on behalf of the Office of Family Assistance and the Peer Technical Assistance team, we'd like to give a warm thanks to Jody Sue Kelly for that tremendous webinar that she just presented. All of you will be receiving an email after this webinar that will highlight a few things. One, we want to make sure that you have an opportunity to register for the office hours. And again, that'll be a chance to look at the assignments that you were giving, give you a chance to share information, and think that share information as well. If there's documents or links that you would like to share with everyone else, please just forward those to me. And I'll have my email in that email with you. Again, my name is Stephen Broyles, and you'll receive that email that will give you an opportunity to share any documents that you'd like to share with other programs. Also, the Peer Technical Assistance team will be more than happy to help you coordinate contact with other Tribal TANF programs or TANF programs if you want to have further conversations. When you receive this email, again, it will give you a chance to register for the office hours. It will also give you links where you can download the assignment that will be given to you. It will also give you the email where you can send the assignment. And that assignment is due February 22nd, so we'll make sure that we send a reminder for that as well. Also, I want to encourage you to please complete the evaluations. You'll see something here in the webinar, but we'll also have a link in that email that you can follow through as well. With that in mind, I just again want to thank everyone for being on the webinar. And if there's no more questions, then I just hope you enjoy the rest of your day. And we look forward to reaching out to you soon.
Bye-bye. It's nice seeing everybody.